desist or you will be arrested. That's your third and final warning.
As you saw there in that video, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and 16 other members of Congress were arrested outside of the Supreme Court protesting, the taking away of women's reproductive rights in the country, as we've heard, of course, about so much there. Now, as they went through this, they anticipated that arrest. I think many people when they're protesting like this, blocking the streets, that they would. So let's go to some details, because the Capitol Police officers did escort lawmakers away from this intersection to process their arrests. And that's according to multiple reports that are on the scene. The officers arrested a total of 35 people, including 17 members of Congress, is what Capitol Police tweeted on Tuesday afternoon. As you saw, it wasn't just AOC, it was also Cori Bush. And she tweeted this out after she was a part of that as well. I introduced legislation yesterday and today to protect reproductive freedom. Today, my colleagues and I put our bodies on the line because we will leave no stone unturned in our fight for justice. Bans off our bodies. So also on Friday, the House also pushed some legislation to codify abortion rights into federal law, something maybe we should have tried before, but okay. So this Democrat-led House on Friday, they did pass this legislation that would enshrine abortion rights in federal law and protect access to abortion for those seeking to travel across state lines to receive the procedure. The measures now head to the Senate, where of course they're expected to fail, given that there's a bunch of Republicans in there, including a couple of Democrats that call themselves, let's call them centrists. They call themselves Democrats here. So I wanted to bring that up as far as what's happening after these arrests, Jessica, because there's always protests. There's people blocking the streets. There's freeways getting blocked off. Things like that always happen. And then afterwards, at least this is the question I sometimes have is, now what? I get it. And that's why I wanted to make sure I point out that there was at least these Congress folks did introduce this legislation to codify those rights. Of course, at this point still, but to get this kind of attention, the whole point of being arrested, the whole point of blocking the streets, and the whole point of having cameras out there is to bring more attention to the particular issue. I just wonder, how much is this helping?
Yeah, it's a great point. With a lot of these protests as well, after the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and just many protests in general, people get permits. They're legal protests. You'll notice the cop says that this is not a lawful protest. They didn't get permits to be in the streets. But if the cops agree that it's totally cool and fine for you to be there, it's not really a protest. And if you need the cops' permission to be able to be in the streets, do you actually have the right to assemble, the right to protest for redress of grievances for the government? Maybe not, but it's not a real protest if the cops give you permission to be in the streets. Are you actually, disrupting anything, bringing attention to your point if it's just a parade, essentially, if you have the permit to be out there? And so I think the strategy of organizing needs to be one of escalation. You start by blocking traffic, and then the next time you're blocking the freeway, unless they know that things are going to get worse, they will wait you out. And so we need to be better organized, and we need to have more plans if we actually want to get something done with these demonstrations.
I wonder, because I'm all about the protests. It brings people out. I remember when the summer of 2020 protests happened, and of course some violence also broke out from those, and then very unlawful looking arrests from very non-uniformed officers happened around the country. Those were effective. Everyone was talking about it. I like to see the real effectiveness of protests. And this, I think, is one of them, because of course there's high profile names. There's certain people that people are always talking about, as we saw, Cori Bush, AOC, the Ilhan Omars, all the squad folks that many conservatives dislike. There is an attention that then comes from this, and then maybe people who weren't paying attention, or maybe who don't know the degree of things that are happening in their state, more attention comes from that. So this is an effective one. Now, sometimes though, I'm like, is the style of protest we do in many of these cases in this country that often gets a pushback as these are radicals. and they're not doing something that's so American. What kind of way can it potentially transcend into something that ends up being as effective as it used to be? I feel like it's starting to lose its bite a little bit. And again, the summer of 2020 was one of the biggest ones that I think did take a lot of attention and brought so many people out in the streets and inspired people to act. But I wonder what way can it be advanced here? Because some people will look at this and be, oh yeah, sure, I heard about abortion rights being taken away, but yeah, sure. Where's the action gonna come? How's it gonna inspire other people? Because that really is the point. And I do like what they were doing. I just don't have much of an answer as far as how to make it better. I feel like I need more energy. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a crazy question. Like, how bad does stuff have to get? What needs to happen for people to be in the streets? Because what's going on right now is really bad. It's really bad. And my dad always used to say, as long as the TV's on, as long as there's, food on the shelves of the grocery store, it's really hard to get people in the streets. But you're right. In the summer of 2020, when people were in the streets for the Black Lives Matter movement, the cable TV was still on, food was still on the shelves of the grocery stores, and people were in the streets. So what does it take to make the general public mad enough? It's scary that people aren't mad enough right now. And I think it's gonna have to be a few more extreme cases like we saw in Texas, where a woman was forced to carry a dead fetus to term. That's insane. In the case in Ohio, making mainstream news. It's gonna have to be more cases like that, I think, unfortunately, to get to that flux point.
It sucks, right? The worst things have to happen and have to get worse in order for people to pay attention. And the one catalyst for the summer of 20 was the pandemic. Well, we need a pandemic every 4 years in order for something else to happen.
That's true, yeah.
Sometimes you just need something. People had that shock to their system and they're home like, well, I can get out in the streets now. I'm working this way. Now everyone's kind of doing it. So next pandemic, I guess.